Hi, my name is Dr. Sarah Wasserbauer, and here's the question. What is scalp micropigmentation? Isn't that just like a tattoo of your scalp? Actually, scalp micropigmentation is quite different. In about the past 2 to 3 years, the materials and the needles for micropigmenting, that is, microscopic, tiny dots of pigment that completely mimic the appearance of the hair follicle. It's actually the shadow of the hair follicle as it enters the skin is what has allowed scalp micropigmentation to really take off. It is very different from your traditional tattoo, which is why most practitioners who do tattooing really can't approximate the level of detail that is needed in order to make this completely natural looking. But if you're somebody who has not enough grafts to get to the visual density that you desire, or if you're a patient who has a high contrast between the appearance of your scalp, like really light scalp and really dark hair, which always allows the scalp to show through, then scalp micropigmentation may be a camouflage option for you. Scalp micropigmentation is also particularly wonderful for our female patients who almost always have more hair remaining in the area that they want more density in, but not always enough hair, or maybe not even have the ability to be a surgical candidate. So the technique is this. It uses tiny microscopic dots of pigment, and if this is your skin depth, most tattoos go millimeters beneath the surface. Scalp micropigmentation goes right there, just underneath the epithelium. They don't disturb your hair follicle, and they just appear they're very shallow dots of pigment. They're not deep. And the reason that this is important in the scalp is this is the area of your body that has the highest concentration of sebaceous glands. Those are the oil glands. If you go too deep in the scalp, then the oil just gets taken over by the pigment, and the pigment just kind of blotches out. So you do not want that to happen on your scalp, because then your scalp just looks like a big ink blot. What you want is little tiny individual dots of pigment. When the pigment is placed very shallowly, then what you're approximating is the look of a hair that is either very short or hair that's going into the scalp. So the eye gets the image of a hair going into the scalp and more hair in the area, and that pigment is not placed so deeply that it affects the hair follicle. So the other benefit of doing scalp micropigmentation versus the traditional tattooing is that scalp micropigmentation can be removed. It doesn't take very long. It's usually, about a half hour for an entire head. The scalp micropigmentation process, most people say they either can't feel it or it feels like an annoying scratching on their scalp. But it is not, most people don't bleed. 99% of patients kind of breeze through this watching a movie. The typical time for an entire treatment for scalp micropigmentation would be between 1 and 3 hours. And usually we do the treatments between 2 weeks apart to 10 days apart, if you really have to shorten the treatment. Scalp micropigmentation is different from tattooing in that it uses different inks, it uses different needles, and it's a different technique. What you're trying to do is make something look subtle. You're not trying to make it obvious, like an I love mom with a big heart on your shoulder. It also provides a visual background, making the hair appear fuller and denser. The appearance can be permanent, or it can be temporary. There's inks that are just simply temporary, and like I said, it's removable. But it also often requires multiple sessions to get that look just perfect. And sometimes patients require a maintenance therapy, like a touch-up once a year. I'll give you a for instance. If you are someone who gets out in the sun quite a bit, the UV light will break down that pigment. Remember, the pigment is very high in the skin. So if you shave your head and you want that shaved look, count on some maintenance about once a year. If you're someone who still has hair in the area and what you want is fuller density, then what you're looking at is, I don't know, once every 5 years. We have patients who haven't come back for 8 years. It just kind of depends on how much light your head gets and how the individual skin type that you have reacts to the pigment. Some people's skin type tends to dissolve the pigment. So you have to come in to see a practitioner who really knows what they're doing in order to determine how this is going to work well for you. And you might need to try what we call a test patch. But the results can be particularly useful, especially when more density is needed than grafts are available if you're considering a surgery. It's also great when scars need camouflage, whether it's an FUE scar or a linear scar. And it's great for helping the hair look fuller when it's wet. I hope that helps you understand what scalp micropigmentation is, and good luck. We'll see you at our offices soon.